This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're examining a phenomenon that's quietly reshaping how successful men live, something I call the peace paradox. It's the moment a man realizes that the less he has to prove, the more power he actually holds. Today we're exploring why the most successful, capable men are choosing the minimalist path, smaller homes, simpler lives, less drama, and why society is terrified that these men can no longer be bought, controlled, or motivated by traditional status games. And before we get into this, let me tell you why this matters more than you think, and why I'm personally invested in explaining this shift. Because I've watched this transformation happen in real time, not just in clients I've counseled, but in my own life. I spent years playing the status game: bigger house, better car, impressive toys, visible success. And I discovered something that changed everything. The pursuit of external validation is a trap that never closes. There's always another level, another purchase, another achievement that's supposed to finally prove you've made it. And it never does. So about 5 years ago, I started systematically dismantling that lifestyle. Smaller home, fewer possessions, simpler days. And I discovered the peace paradox. The less I had to prove, the more powerful I actually became, not in anyone else's eyes, in my own. And that internal power is the only power that actually matters. So if you're here expecting me to sell you on hustle culture or convince you that external success equals fulfillment, you're in the wrong place. This is about understanding why the smartest men are opting out of the game entirely, and why that choice represents the ultimate form of power. Stay with me. There's a revolution happening quietly among high-value men. Men who could afford luxury are choosing simplicity. Men who could buy bigger are choosing smaller. Men who could compete in status games are choosing to not play at all. And this isn't about failure or giving up. This is about men realizing that the game itself is rigged, that winning the external game often means losing the internal one. That accumulating status symbols costs something far more valuable than money. It costs peace. The traditional masculine script. Let's start by examining what men were taught to pursue. The traditional masculine script goes like this: work hard, build wealth, buy the house, get the car, wear the watch, marry the woman, have the kids, display your success through visible markers that signal to the world, I made it. This script was sold as the path to fulfillment, respect, and happiness. Society told men that if you just accumulated enough money, enough status, enough possessions, you'd finally feel successful. You'd finally feel like you'd arrived. You'd finally be enough. And millions of men followed this script faithfully. They worked 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. They climbed corporate ladders. They built businesses. They accumulated wealth. They bought the houses, the cars, the toys. They checked every box society told them to check. And then something unexpected happened. They arrived at success and discovered it was empty. The house was big but empty. The car was expensive but joyless. The watch was impressive but meaningless. The lifestyle they'd built to prove their worth had become a prison that consumed their time, their energy, their peace. I've counseled dozens of men through this exact realization. Men earning 7 figures who were miserable. Men living in mansions who felt trapped. Men driving luxury cars who would trade it all for a day of genuine peace. And the common thread was always the same. They built external success while destroying internal peace, and once they had the external success, they realized it wasn't worth the cost. The hedonic treadmill. There's a psychological concept called the hedonic treadmill, also known as hedonic adaptation. It describes how humans quickly adapt to improvements in their circumstances and return to a baseline level of happiness. You buy the new car. It's exciting for a week, maybe a month, then you adapt. It's just your car now. The excitement fades. And your baseline happiness returns to exactly where it was before the purchase. So you chase the next thing, the bigger house, the better watch, the newer car, each time thinking this will be the thing that finally makes me feel successful. Each time experiencing temporary excitement followed by adaptation back to baseline. This is the treadmill. You keep running, keep purchasing, keep achieving, but your actual sustained happiness never increases. You're just burning resources and energy staying in place emotionally. The treadmill never stops. There's always another level, another purchase, another achievement. Always something more to prove. High-value men are recognizing this pattern and making a radical choice. Step off the treadmill entirely. Stop playing the game where the goalposts constantly move. Stop letting external markers define internal worth. Stop sacrificing peace for status that never actually delivers sustained fulfillment. The cost of complexity. Every possession you own owns you back. This isn't poetic, it's practical reality. Every item you own requires time, energy, money, and mental space. The big house needs maintenance, property taxes, utilities, insurance, furnishing, cleaning, repairs, landscaping. It ties you to a location. It requires income to maintain. It consumes weekends with projects and upkeep. The house you bought to signal success becomes an anchor limiting your freedom. The luxury car needs premium fuel, expensive insurance, scheduled maintenance, careful parking, worry about damage or theft. It depreciates rapidly while costing constantly. The car you bought to feel successful becomes a liability draining resources. The extensive wardrobe needs organization, cleaning, storage, decision-making energy every morning. The impressive watch collection needs insurance, security, maintenance. The boat needs docking fees, maintenance, storage. The vacation home needs management, property taxes, upkeep, even when you're not using it. Every single thing requires something from you. And the aggregate cost of maintaining a high-complexity lifestyle is staggering, not just financially, but in time and mental energy. You work harder to afford the lifestyle, which requires more work to maintain the income level, which generates stress that requires expensive activities to relieve, which requires more income, which requires more work. It's a self-reinforcing cycle that never ends. The peace paradox is recognizing that the simpler the lifestyle, the more freedom you have. The less you own, the less owns you. The smaller your life, the larger your autonomy. The fewer obligations you have, the more options you possess. High-value men are choosing simple not because they can't afford complex. They're choosing simple because they've learned complex is expensive in ways that money can't measure. The relationship between stuff and freedom. There's an inverse relationship between possessions and freedom. The more you own, the less free you are. This seems counterintuitive in a consumer society that equates possessions with success and success with freedom, but it's mathematically demonstrable. Possessions limit geographic mobility. You can't easily move across the country or internationally when you own a house, furniture, cars, extensive belongings. Your stuff anchors you to your current location. Possessions limit career flexibility. You can't easily take a lower-paying job you'd enjoy more when you have high fixed costs from maintaining an expensive lifestyle. Your stuff forces you to keep earning at levels that sustain it, even when that work destroys you. Possessions limit time autonomy. Your weekends get consumed maintaining what you own rather than doing what you actually enjoy. Your mental space gets occupied managing possessions rather than pursuing growth. Your stuff demands attention constantly. Possessions create vulnerability. The more you have, the more you have to lose. The more insurance you need, the more security concerns you have, the more you worry about protecting what you've accumulated. Your stuff becomes a source of anxiety rather than satisfaction. The minimalist insight isn't that possessions are evil. It's that possessions have costs beyond their purchase price. And most people dramatically underestimate those costs until they're drowning in stuff they thought would make them happy. High-value men are running this calculation honestly and discovering that less stuff equals more freedom, more flexibility, more peace. And freedom, flexibility, and peace are worth more than any possession could ever provide. The status game trap. Let's examine the status game honestly. The game where men compete for position in social hierarchies through displays of wealth, success, and achievement. The status game is seductive because it's measurable. You can compare houses, cars, incomes, titles, achievements. You can definitively say, I'm winning based on external markers. And humans are wired to seek status within social hierarchies. It's evolutionary psychology that served our ancestors well. But here's the trap. The status game is relative and infinite. You're always comparing yourself to someone. And no matter how much you achieve, there's always someone with more. You buy the 100,000 car and feel successful until you see the 200,000 car. You make $500,000 per year and feel accomplished until you meet the guy making $2 million. You buy the 4,000 square foot house and feel satisfied until you visit the 8,000 square foot house. The game never ends because status is relative positioning, not absolute achievement. You can never win because there's always another level, always someone with more, always a way to feel insufficient by comparison. And here's the devastating part. Winning the status game requires constant maintenance. You have to keep earning, keep achieving, keep displaying, keep proving your position, because the moment you stop, someone else rises past you. The moment you relax, you're falling behind in the rankings. It's exhausting, it's unsustainable, and it never delivers the sustained satisfaction it promises. High-value men are realizing that the only way to win the status game is to refuse to play, to stop measuring themselves against others, to stop seeking external validation, to stop letting their worth be determined by relative positioning and hierarchies that don't actually matter. When you opt out of the status game, you win permanently. Not because you beat everyone else, but because you're no longer playing a game where winning is impossible. You've changed the rules entirely. The invisible wealth principle. There's a concept in financial planning called invisible wealth, wealth that doesn't display itself through possessions or lifestyle, but provides genuine security and freedom. Visible wealth is the big house, the luxury car, the designer clothes, the expensive watch. It signals status. It tells the world I'm successful, but it also ties you to high income requirements, creates financial vulnerability, and often represents leveraged lifestyle rather than actual wealth. Invisible wealth is the paid-off modest home, the reliable used car, the healthy investment portfolio, the lack of debt, the low fixed costs. It doesn't signal anything to anyone, but it provides genuine security, genuine options, genuine freedom to make choices based on preference rather than financial necessity. Many men who appear wealthy through visible markers are actually financially fragile. High income, but also high expenses. Impressive lifestyle, but minimal savings. Status symbols purchased with leverage. One job loss, one market downturn, one unexpected expense away from crisis. Meanwhile, men with invisible wealth appear ordinary but are genuinely secure. Lower income but minimal expenses. Modest lifestyle but substantial savings. No impressive displays but complete financial independence. These men can weather storms, take risks, make choices based on values rather than financial pressure. The peace paradox recognizes that invisible wealth provides actual power, while visible wealth only provides the appearance of power. An appearance without substance is vulnerability masquerading as success. High-value men are choosing to build invisible wealth rather than visible wealth, choosing actual security over the performance of security, choosing genuine freedom over the appearance of success, because they've learned that real power comes from what you don't need to prove, not from what you display. The masculinity redefinition. Traditional masculinity defined male worth through provision, achievement, and status. A real man earns well, provides for family, owns property, displays success, commands respect through visible achievement. This definition served society well historically. It motivated men to be productive, to build, to provide, to compete. It created economic growth and social stability. But it also created a trap where male worth became entirely dependent on external validation and economic productivity. Modern society still pushes this definition while simultaneously attacking it. Men are told to be successful providers while being shamed for caring about success. Told to earn well while being accused of toxic masculinity for competing. Told to display achievement while being criticized for status seeking. The contradiction is crazy-making, and high-value men are resolving it by rejecting the entire framework, by refusing to let external measures define their worth, by building internal definitions of masculinity based on capability, autonomy, peace, and purpose rather than external validation. This new masculine identity doesn't need society's approval, doesn't need women's validation, doesn't need peers' envy. It's self-defined, self-sustaining, and self-validating. And that's what terrifies society. Men who can't be controlled through shame, can't be motivated through status competition, can't be bought with promises of validation. When you build internal definition of worth, you become immune to external manipulation. When you stop caring what anyone thinks, you become ungovernable. When you stop playing the status game, you become unpredictable. And unpredictable, ungovernable men with internal definitions of worth represent threat to every system built on male compliance. Why society hates this trend. Let's be direct about why mainstream society, media, and culture actively attack this minimalist, peace-focused male lifestyle. Because the entire economic system depends on male consumption, competition, and pursuit of external validation. Men who stop consuming, stop competing, stop seeking validation through purchases and achievements represent existential threat to consumer capitalism. The housing market needs men buying bigger houses to impress women. The automotive industry needs men buying luxury cars to signal status. The fashion industry needs men buying expensive clothes to display success. The entertainment industry needs men spending on experiences to maintain lifestyles. The financial industry needs men staying in debt to fund status displays. When high-value men choose smaller homes, used cars, simple clothes, minimal entertainment, and debt-free living, every one of these industries loses a customer who had money to spend but chose not to spend it. That's terrifying to economic systems built on ever-increasing consumption, but it goes deeper than economics. The social system depends on male competition for female attention. Women select partners based partly on visible markers of success. When men stop competing for female attention through status displays, female sexual selection power diminishes. Women who position themselves to select from competing men discover the highest value men aren't competing anymore, they're opting out. This fundamentally disrupts relationship dynamics that society depends on. If high-value men don't need relationships to feel complete, don't need female validation to feel successful, don't need marriage and family to feel fulfilled, then women lose leverage in relationship negotiation, and society loses the compliance mechanism that kept men productive and controllable. So the response is predictable: pathologize, shame, and attack. Frame men choosing minimalism as failures, as men who couldn't succeed so they're pretending not to want success, as men avoiding responsibility, as men refusing to grow up, anything to prevent other men from realizing that opting out is actually winning. The psychology of enough, one of the most powerful psychological shifts in the minimalist journey, is developing a concept of enough. Consumer culture is built on destroying the concept of enough. There's always a better version, a newer model, an upgraded option. You're never supposed to feel satisfied with what you have because satisfaction stops consumption. So marketing constantly creates artificial dissatisfaction, making you feel what you have is inadequate, outdated, embarrassing. This psychological warfare is exhausting, and it's designed to be endless. If you engage with it, you'll never feel satisfied because the entire system is engineered to prevent satisfaction. The minimalist breakthrough is defining enough for yourself and defending that definition against external pressure. Enough income to live comfortably without financial stress. Enough space to be comfortable without excess to maintain. Enough possessions to function well without complexity to manage. Enough social connection to avoid isolation without drama to navigate. When you define enough and stop at enough, you exit the consumption treadmill permanently. You stop being vulnerable to advertising. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop feeling inadequate based on external standards. You've achieved sufficiency, and sufficiency is the prerequisite for peace. High-value men are discovering that enough is a revolutionary concept. Not because it's difficult to achieve, most men with middle-class incomes can achieve enough fairly easily, but because our culture actively prevents you from recognizing when you have enough. It constantly moves the goalposts to keep you chasing more. When you reclaim the power to say, I have enough, you reclaim power over your entire life. You stop being manipulable. You stop being controllable. You stop being dependent on external validation. You become sovereign. The time-wealth revolution money is renewable. You can always earn more. Time is non-renewable. Once spent, it's gone forever. This basic truth should make time obviously more valuable than money, but most men live like the opposite is true. They sacrifice time to accumulate money, then spend that money on things that consume more time. The minimalist insight is that time is the ultimate wealth. Time autonomy, the ability to decide how you spend your hours, is more valuable than any possession, and lifestyle complexity is the primary thief of time autonomy. Every possession requires time. Every obligation requires time. Every relationship requires time. Every achievement requires time. The question isn't whether these things are worth time. Some are. The question is whether you're consciously choosing time allocation or unconsciously letting your life consume time in ways that don't serve you. High-value men are becoming ruthless about time allocation. They're asking, is this worth my finite time? And increasingly the answer is no. The bigger house isn't worth the weekends maintaining it. The luxury car isn't worth the extra work hours required to afford it. The impressive social calendar isn't worth the mental energy navigating it. The relationship that demands constant management isn't worth the peace it costs. This isn't laziness. This is valuing time appropriately. This is recognizing that you have maybe 4,000 weeks on Earth if you're lucky, and wasting those weeks maintaining stuff you don't actually value or pursuing goals that don't actually fulfill you is the ultimate tragedy. The minimalist path creates time wealth. Fewer possessions equals more free time. Simpler lifestyle equals more time autonomy. Less complexity equals more time for what actually matters. And time for what actually matters is the only wealth that improves life quality sustainably. The peace discovery. Let me tell you what actually happens when you embrace minimalism intentionally, because this isn't theoretical for me. This is lived experience. About 5 years ago, I started systematically simplifying my life. Sold the big house, moved to a smaller place, sold a luxury car, bought a reliable used one, gave away or sold 60% of my possessions, eliminated most social obligations, reduced my work to only projects that genuinely interested me. The external result looked like downgrade, smaller home, older car, fewer possessions, quieter social life. From the outside, it looked like I was doing worse, not better, but the internal result was transformative. I discovered peace. Real, sustained, deep peace. Not the temporary relief of vacation or entertainment, but baseline peace as my normal state. I wake up without anxiety about maintaining anything. My days belong to me, my time is my own. My mental space is clear, my stress is minimal. My energy goes toward things I actually value, rather than maintaining things I accumulated to signal status. And here's the unexpected part. My external success improved. My income increased because I focused only on high-value work, rather than spreading energy across obligations that didn't matter. My relationships improved because I only maintained relationships that added value. My health improved because I had time for exercise, cooking, sleep. My psychological well-being improved because I wasn't constantly stressed about maintaining complexity. The peace paradox in practice: by stopping the pursuit of external success markers, I became more successful on every metric that actually matters. By choosing less, I gained more. By requiring less, I became more powerful. By proving nothing to anyone, I became someone I genuinely respect. And I've watched dozens of men make the same journey with the same results. The ones who embrace minimalism intentionally don't regret it. They wonder why they wasted years playing games that never delivered the peace they have now. The freedom path. So what does this actually look like practically? How do high-value men implement the minimalist path? First, they define enough. What income is actually sufficient for comfortable living without stress? What size home is adequate without being excessive? What possessions are genuinely useful versus status displays? They create clear definitions and stop at enough rather than always pursuing more. Second, they eliminate aggressively. They sell, donate, or discard possessions that don't serve clear purposes. They exit relationships that drain more than they contribute. They quit obligations that consume time without adding value. They simplify ruthlessly until their life contains only what genuinely matters. Third, they resist addition. Every time they consider acquiring something new, possession, obligation, relationship, they ask, is this worth what it will cost in time, energy, money, and peace? Most things fail this test. Most things get declined. Fourth, they invest in time autonomy. They structure work to maximize flexibility and minimize obligations. They build savings and investments to reduce dependence on active income. They create lifestyle with minimal fixed costs so they can work less if desired. They optimize for freedom rather than income maximization. Fifth, they build internal validation. They stop caring what others think about their choices. They stop comparing themselves to peers. They stop seeking approval or status. They develop internal measures of worth based on their own values rather than external standards. The result is a life that looks ordinary from outside but feels extraordinary from inside. A life where peace is baseline rather than exception. A life where time belongs to you rather than to obligations. A life where you're genuinely content rather than constantly chasing more. This is the ultimate power move. Let me explain why minimalism represents the ultimate power move for high-value men. Because this isn't about settling or giving up or failing to compete. This is about recognizing what actual power looks like. Power isn't having more than others. Power is needing less than others. Power isn't displaying success. Power is being immune to the need to display success. Power isn't winning status games. Power is being unaffected by status games entirely. When you need very little, you're uncontrollable. Nobody can threaten you effectively because you're not vulnerable to loss of status or possessions. When you're not seeking validation, you're immune to shame and social pressure. Nobody can manipulate you through approval or disapproval because you don't require their opinion. When you're content with simple, you're free to make choices based on values rather than economic necessity. You can walk away from bad situations, you can take risks, you can pursue purpose over profit. You can live according to your principles because your survival doesn't depend on compromising them. This is power, real power. The kind that doesn't need to be displayed because it's internal and unshakable. The kind that grows stronger the less you prove. The kind that terrifies systems built on compliance because it can't be bought, threatened, or manipulated. High-value men are choosing minimalism not as consolation for failure, but as rejection of games that never had worthwhile prizes. They're choosing peace not because they couldn't handle chaos, but because they've learned peace is more valuable. They're choosing simple not because they couldn't afford complex, but because complex costs more than it's worth. This is the peace paradox in full form. The less you need to prove, the more power you actually hold. And that power is yours forever because it's internal, self-sustaining, and independent of anyone else's opinion or validation. Final thoughts, let me tell you why I made this video, why I'm willing to explain a path that mainstream society actively attacks. Because I've lived both sides. I've played the status game and won by external measures, and I've embraced minimalism and won by internal measures. And the internal wins are incomparably more valuable than the external ones. The big house didn't make me happy. The luxury cars didn't make me happy. The impressive lifestyle didn't make me happy. What made me happy was shedding all of that and discovering that I didn't need any of it, that I was enough without proving anything, that peace was the prize I'd been chasing through all the wrong methods. And I've watched hundreds of men make this same discovery, men who thought they needed more, discovering they needed less. Men who thought they needed to prove themselves, discovering they needed to accept themselves. Men who thought external success would create internal peace, discovering that internal peace makes external success irrelevant. This channel exists because I got tired of watching men sacrifice themselves, pursuing goals that won't deliver what they promise. I got tired of men destroying their peace-chasing status that won't fulfill them. I got tired of men spending their lives proving worth to people whose opinions don't actually matter. So if this resonated, if you're starting to question whether the status game is worth playing, if you're tired of the complexity and chaos and constant proving, consider the minimalist path. Not as failure or giving up, but as the ultimate power move, as choosing actual power over the appearance of power, as choosing peace over performance. Drop a comment about your own journey. Have you simplified your life? Have you discovered that less is actually more? Share what you've learned so other men benefit from your experience. Subscribe for more truth about what actually creates fulfillment versus what society tells you will create fulfillment. Because this channel will never sell you on chasing status that won't satisfy you. We'll never encourage you to prove yourself to people whose approval doesn't matter. We'll never frame male worth as dependent on external validation. You're enough right now. You don't need more to be valuable. You don't need to prove anything to be worthy. You just need peace. And peace comes from having less to prove, not more to display. The peace paradox is real. The less you have to prove, the more power you actually hold. Choose accordingly.